research. That's it.
Yes, thank you. And there was a lot of that before, from Tesla, and who died in 1943, and then all his stuff was buried. The Russians actually got hold of this stuff first because there was a Tesla museum in Belgrade since like 1936, and a lot of Tesla's papers and things ended up there, and the Russians took him seriously before our scientists did, and they developed this. There was a Nazi connection that way too, because that dovetails real well with the time frame of Hitler's Third Reich. And I'm deviating though. After Project Argus, they found out that they could use these auroras, which are part of the planet's magnetic field, to broadcast with greater power and with much greater accuracy than they could ever do it before. A lot of ham operators were familiar with what they called the skip, and that was radio broadcasting that took advantage of certain conditions within the ionosphere, and the ionosphere would actually, in certain times, due to solar activity, act as a mirror force, and they could broadcast upward, and it would skip over the horizon, and somebody here in New Mexico would be able to communicate with someone in the Soviet Union for a short period of time, because these were very transient situations, but it was known as the skip. The Navy developed all this through Argus and, like I say, the 20 or 30 other projects that we know that are not classified, and decided that it would be very advantageous from a military point of view to be able to make these active aurora antennas to order whenever they needed them for mobile units to broadcast off. And they're very valuable. After I first saw my first chemtrails in the 70s, I got out of the service in 81, but I stayed abreast of certain other military's activities. I was privy to a satellite photo from the early 90s, right before Bill Clinton got in, during Gulf War I, and it shows chemtrailing going on over Saudi Arabia, and during Desert Storm, I believe it was. Was that the first war over there, do you know?
I think it was Desert Storm.
Yes, and that's indicative too.
It was about 1990, I think, wasn't it?
1990, and, well, it was up through until Bill Clinton became president. And but actually it never stopped. The money was being pumped in there the whole time Clinton was in, and it was just not called a war. And then it became a war again when, after the 8 years of Bill Clinton, who had his own little war over there in Serbia, that's part of his legacy too. And then, of course, W has his legacy now, which is 8 years of war, taking off where his father left off. But I'm of the opinion, and I believe that anybody who really was able to follow it would see that there was a lull over there in between during the time of Bill Clinton, but a lot of the activities that were going on over there as far as testing a lot of technology, they just continued to go on. And the satellite photo that I have from 91 shows the same exact chemtrail forms, if not greater, a little greater, than what we see in our skies here daily. And they're grids, they're hooked grids, they're circles, they're round curves, and like I said, there's the shapes in the sky that make use of solar energy as soon as they're sprayed. Then as they spread, they become active auroral. And it depends on what's sprayed and in what layer of the atmosphere and at what time of day. You very rarely see any night spraying. That's part of one of the disinformation programs that they propagated, was about night spraying, but you very rarely see it. Very rarely.
Why no night spraying?
I'm sorry?
Why no night spraying? Why don't they spray?
Because they're losing the advantages they gain by spraying under the sun. And the sun is definitely an energy technology. And the sun acts. I don't know how deep we can get into this. Michelson-Morley effect is when you have lines, just straight lines sprayed, and then light reacting with those lines, you have certain attributes that exhibit perfectly and better than most people would be able to imagine. The quantum multiverse versus what most people been well hidden from a lot of people in the dumbing down. So anyway, the straight lines and the shapes in the sky are definitely either quantum experiments, quantum energy harvesting, novel solar harvesting of energy in experimental ore. The HAARP patent itself says that a straight plume of particulates sprayed in the sky can focus vast amounts of sunlight on small selected areas of the Earth with a high degree of accuracy, and, not to be forgotten, can simulate in many ways nuclear explosions without having to detonate a nuclear device. Okay, so what you have is when you have these straight lines in the sky, you have lots and lots and lots of solar energy being focused on the planet at specific areas. A lot of it's called ground heating. And it doesn't matter if people are there or not. Even if it's good if people are there, then you can see how they jump, and that's the way they are. They like to see people jump. But also, as far as ENMOD is concerned, if you heat the ground, you have an updraft, and then when you have an updraft, you have the wind rushing in from the side. So it's actually an air-moving engine as well. If you do it over a city, people tend to, if you do it at a certain level, you can put everybody to sleep. If it's done at another level, you can give everybody a stomach ache. If you do it at another level, you can make everyone violent. So they have all this now. They've been working on this for a long time, and they know the formulas very well for that. But like I say, after the lines are sprayed, this is a transient form, and then they begin to spread. As they spread, they become very thin, and the particulate becomes a real thin cloud that a lot of times you can see like little rainbows inside of it, or little, what they call sun dogs. That's actually evidence of the petroleum that was sprayed along with the particulates. As it spreads, it becomes an active aurora, because then the sun, which is massive, massive power, is starting to literally break apart the particulates. It forms an ion plasma, and ions are subatomic particles. They're just basically like an atom that's been busted up. You have free protons, free neutrons, protons and neutrons together, really, and then you have lots of free electrons. And then this becomes very manipulable with antenna technology. It can be moved around. It can be used for many different things. A lot of times you'll see like washboard designs in the sky. That's called undulatus, electro-undulatus, and that's an artifact that indicates there's some heavy, heavy energies being propagated via antenna in conjunction with these active auroras. And then when the active aurora becomes the ionized plasma, it's the second step of the chemtrail. It's useful for many things, and we just can't go into it. There's thousands and thousands of patents for anyone who wants to do any studies on this. You want to search particulates. Don't search chemtrails. That's kind of an idiom. You'd want to start with the HAARP patent and start pulling out keywords from the HAARP patent itself, and then you could just go on and on and on. There's thousands and thousands, and some of these patents go back pre-1950. So they've been, and these are patents that were classified and now are unclassified. So you can see that this has all been well planned for quite some time. Finally, the third step to a chemtrail is the actual physical conditioning that we all undergo. To go back and to reiterate, the first step is a quantum energy harvesting, which has definite mind control aspects along with ground heating and other things having to do with environmental modification. Second, you have active auroral aspects. As the plasma spreads, it becomes ionic, active ions, where the sun is degrading the particulate itself. This depends on its proximity to the sun, the type of atmosphere that's above it, and what is sprayed. Okay, and there are many different types of things being sprayed as well. Some of these actually form and create a low-grade laser. That's the byproduct of the solar degradation of the particulate. So those are the first two steps: solar quantum energy harvesting and active auroral antenna manipulable plasmas. The third is the physical conditioning, when the inversion happens every night. This stuff hits the ground, and we're breathing it, eating it, and drinking our water. And we've had this going on now for a decade, heavy. Before that, for sure. And the thing is, there's been no accountability. This is secret stuff. So they just deny that this is even happening. But now